How's it going, everyone? Welcome to another ARK bonus, and today, well, we have our top 10 creatures for Ragnarok. Now, yeah, this list, we're gonna go through and take a look at the top 10, but there's one in particular, as you can tell from the title of this video, that I want to discuss. But yeah, the first submission is the American Cheetah. And this thing honestly looks somewhat like a Managarm. But at the same time, it looks pretty dang cool. Now, yeah, it looks to be a little bit bigger than a Thyla. It looks like, they're saying it can swerve around objects, but then again, a lot of creatures that should be able to swerve around objects still can't, like dire bears. You would assume they could, and they can't. Woolly rhinos, you'd assume they could, they can't, and yeah, the AI can be off, so I don't know how the AI of these dudes would work. But it can climb up cliffs and pounce, so similar to a Thyla. Deploy hazards on the run, and you can use a weapon on the back, which is cool. I really like things that you can use weapons on the back of, and a tech saddle for it. That's pretty cool. And you get warmth. And this is a mammal, and mammals seem pretty suiting to Ragnarok, because Ragnarok has a lot of mammalian creatures, even its fantasy creatures, like the griffin. The griffin seems to be, even though it's a cross between a bird and a lion, I believe. I don't have my mythology right. I'm thinking of Manticore. But anyway, I know the Manticore. I don't know the Griffin. Dang it. But yeah, these guys seem pretty dang cool. Yeah, so honestly, I think they would be a good addition. And then the next one we have on our list, Dreadnoughtus, another sauropod. Now, having another sauropod, there's a pro and a con. A pro is you have another tank. And honestly, if this were to be easier to tame than a Titanosaur, and a Majungasaurus. In my opinion, the Majungasaurus is an absolute disaster. Yeah, just such a pain to tame. I mean, gosh, you think Gorgonops and Rhinognatha can be a pain. Jeez, the Majungasaurus, that thing was a disaster. Yeah, no, I honestly think the Majungasaurus taming method is an absolute disaster. So if this thing wins and has a similar taming method, then yeah, I have no interest in it whatsoever. But the pros of another sauropod are that you have another tank. But how useful is it, in my opinion? Is it going to be just as useful on PvE as it would on PvP? Because a lot of people tend to forget that ARK, you can play single player. And a lot of single player creatures, a lot of people tend to forget that, and they create all these PvP creatures, and you're like, oh, this would be great for PvP, like the Titanosaur. It is solely a PvP creature. Well, if you're playing PvE, single player, then, you know, you can't tame it. It's just not feasible to tame a Titanosaur on single player. It's doable, but it's incredibly expensive, very time consuming. It takes hours. Literally in real life, not ARK hours, but real life hours. I tried taming a Titanosaur shortly after I purchased and played ARK for the first time, and I'd read up you hit it in the head with cannons, and I had to make up so many cannons. I spent several days making up cannonballs for it. I had to get the best possible Quetzal I could, just super breed them until I got one with, you know, excellent weight, excellent stamina, so it could carry all of this. And the Titanosaur, it took forever to tame. So hopefully, if Dreadnoughtus wins, it is nothing like the Titanosaur taming method. That would be a nightmare. So yeah, you know, pros and cons. But yeah, this thing, it looks pretty good. But if it has significant uses in single player, then I think it would win my vote, because I vote on these creatures based on how useful they would be for a single player environment. Because I only play ARK single player. I do not play multiplayer. So yeah. So Dreadnoughtus might get my vote. Now the next one is the giraffe. The Sivatherium. Apparently it acts like a boulder slinger. And this could be pretty dang useful. If Carcanos spawned on excuse me, I have a tickle in my throat. If Carcanos spawned on Ragnarok, this guy could be pretty dang useful for Carcanos taming. Yeah, and these guys, they're pretty big. The Boulder Slinger and the first giraffe, they look pretty cool. I like the artwork. Yeah, it just, you know, a lot of people are going to say, well, it looks like a Megalosaurus, you know, and, you know, blah, 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 and stuff like that. But if you take a better look at it, it's not a Megalosaurus. A Megalosaurus is not that big compared to this. This is a lot bigger than Megalosaurus. Let's look, there's a person. It's like an itty bitty thing compared to the whole body, yeah. And here's a size comparison to it. Megalosaurus is a little bit smaller. So yeah. It's interesting, and I'm considering this one. So just to have, you know, something new, something different than what we already have. And then next up, the Nothosaurus. This one, quite interesting. The Nothosaurus, it was a prehistoric amphibious lizard, as it's stated at the beginning. It's really, really interesting. The concept for it is pretty cool, but I think its biggest downfall, I don't think it's going to win Ragnarok, because Ragnarok, even though it has a decent amount of ocean, it doesn't have as much as some of the other maps. So if it were to be placed on a map like, let me think, like Crystal Isles or Lost Island or Fjordur or the center. Why is Wildcard skipping the center and going straight to Ragnarok? I don't know. I guess not a lot of people play the center anymore. Or they just want the center to be the one that they don't touch. Who knows? But yeah, this is a pretty interesting addition. Yeah, it's right hand, the rush of the water and the so yeah, it's just like taming an Equus. Yeah, or an Andrewsarchus. It's passive tame. You sneak up behind them. You play a mini game. You win the mini game. You get a Nothosaurus. You lose the mini game. You get shredded. But yeah, it's quite an interesting idea to have a Nothosaurus, and it's pretty cool to see this on the list. Okay, now giant bison. We've seen this in previous lists, and I think this time the giant bison may have an advantage because it's because it fits the theme of Ragnarok. Ragnarok is sort of a medieval theme map, a lot of mammals, and that's exactly what a bison is. It's a mammal. And you think back to medieval times, you'll think of things like the uses of cattle and livestock and all that stuff. And you still have the milk and cheese proposition. You have this interesting the cart proposition, using a cart as a saddle. So that would be kind of cool. You got your Western station wagon. That's pretty cool. I assume to get one of these, if they add one of these, you'll need 2 bison, which would be pretty interesting to say, hey, you can't equip this to just 1 bison. You need to equip it to 2. So that'd be interesting if they added that, or perhaps they have it, but it's just for 1 bison, maybe someone riding on the back of the bison itself, and someone riding here, who knows. But it appears it would just be like a pack mule. But yeah, it's pretty interesting, and I think it would suit Ragnarok decently. Yeah, the last photo was in, I can't remember what map it was. I think it was the island. And I didn't think it would go too well with the island because there's more the island is much more reptilian themed and invertebrate themed, and a lot more, a little bit of ocean and stuff like that. Not that much for mammals. The only literally the only 2 Ice Age mammals you have are the woolly rhino and the mammoth. Well, you also have the dire wolves and the daedons. But the daedons are in the desert as well. So, yeah. I honestly think the bison would be a decent fit. Okay, now the Gigantoraptor, this one is an interesting proposition. The fact that they've proposed, where is it? OSD style nest defense. That's honestly kind of cool. But yeah, the Gigantoraptor, that would be an interesting thing to have. I'm not sure where on Ragnarok they would put it. I assume they would put it somewhere in the desert biome or near the desert biome. That Gigantoraptor's a pretty interesting proposition. It was interesting for Scorched Earth. And I honestly think it would fit in best in a desert biome. And I think that it would have fit in well with Scorched Earth. When I did my vote for Scorched Earth, the Gigantoraptor was in my top 5, but it was not the top of my list. I think it was the 4th place on my list. But yeah, Gigantoraptor could be an interesting addition to Ragnarok. I don't see too many downsides unless it ends up being something that's more like a PvP creature. Like if it has absolutely a ton of uses when it comes to PvP play, but if you're on PvP single player, it has virtually no use, then yeah, I just that's what kind of gets me. I really don't like when they added. I'm going back to the Amargasaurus because the Amargasaurus has absolutely no use whatsoever for single player, and it is just so annoying because it spawns in places on Lost Island that, like in certain places of the desert biome on Lost Island, make pretty decent base locations, or outpost locations. Not your home base, but maybe an outpost base. And unfortunately, the Amargasaurus spawn there. Or there's other creatures there that you want to tame, but the Amargasaurus is there. And you have to kill all those Amargasaurus or pull them away before you can tame whatever you want to. And yeah, so hopefully this will not be an Amargasaurus, because the Amargasaurus, I absolutely hate those. I think they are a complete disaster, and I just absolutely hate those. Those are one of my pet peeves of ARK. I just absolutely hate the Amargasaurus. I think that was a disaster to add them. The taming method is a disaster, and the fact that they have no use whatsoever when it comes to single player, and the fact that they are so common as well. So yeah, that's why I'm going. That's why I'm hoping that whatever's added here is either common and has uses on single player, or is uncommon and but it needs to have uses for single player. And if it doesn't have that many uses, it needs to be an uncommon or rare creature. Yeah, because I don't know, that's my beef. But our next creature, we're gonna skip the Gorgon. We're coming back to it at the end. The Sumo Hadrosaur. This one is essentially so ARK is well overdue for Hadrosaur, with the only one being the Parasaur. Iguanodon is actually a Hadrosaur as well. But I understand your point. Yeah. So this one is essentially just a pack mule. And I think the heavier you are, the more damage you will do. Being encumbered does not affect speed. That's pretty cool. Has different buffs. Headbutt, hip check, hip check. Directional stomp. Okay, so this would be something that's aggressive. Yeah, so I think it's okay. It'd just be more of a pack mule, and I don't play Ragnarok that much because it's not my favorite non-DLC, non-canon DLC. Um, as a lot of you know, if you watch my videos, you will know that Ragnarok is not my favorite. I enjoy it, but it's not my favorite. It's also not my least favorite. It's in the middle. If I were to rank, which I will be doing a ranking video on the non-canon DLCs, before Survival Ascended comes out. So these guys, they could be decent. You know, I'm kind of in the middle with these guys. I mean, a pack mule, something that has no issues with being encumbered, that's a big plus. Something that ends up, however, being like, if it ends up being super slow, like stego slow, regardless of the weight, if it's naturally just really slow, even if bred and imprinted, honestly, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, that's my current thought. I'm kind of 50-50 with this one. The dire otter. I cannot believe this thing is actually real. That is absolutely insane. It looks like it's a fictional creature, but it's not. That thing is real, and that thing actually looks terrifying. That thing actually looks something straight out of a nightmare. Or straight out of a supernatural horror film or something. But that is pretty cool. That acts as an oxygen tank, like the Diplocalus, which hopefully it looks like you can saddle these guys. So that would be a plus. And hopefully you can ride them on land. Unlike the Diplocalus, you can't ride them on land. Hopefully these guys you can. Let's see here. Cold water insulation. Okay, that'd be a plus if the water you dive into happens to be cold. If you don't have access to scuba and your fortitude's really bad, that could be a plus. Let's see. It's not as good as an anglerfish, but it is better than a survivor when it comes to pearls. That's a big plus. Hopefully, if it does black pearls, it gets weight reduction on black pearls. That would be a big plus. Stun immune, yes. Oh my gosh, I hate that the Basilosaurus is the only thing that is immune to being stunned. Absolutely hate that. If this guy wins, he better be immune to being stunned. It's not as tanky or hard hitting. You know, that's a trade-off. That's a fair trade. So I guess it would be immune to stun and a little bit faster. That's what I would assume. It would trade speed for speed for tankiness. I think that would be a fair trade-off. And with the bonus of not being stunned, that would be a plus. Because a lot of the sea creatures in ARK that get stunned and slowed down, like by the jellies and the Electrophorus, like it doesn't make sense. Like a Bassie is immune, but a Mosa, which is much bigger than a Bassie, a Tuso, also much bigger than Bassie, is vulnerable. It doesn't make too much sense. But whatever. If this guy wins, he better have that stun immunity. That is the #1 thing I'm looking for, to stun immunity. Pearls, it could be just slightly better. It could be disappointingly. That could be a disappointing trait. You know, it could gather slightly more, but not bunch, and disappoint people. The cold water insulation, that's good. Early oxygen tank, that's good. But yeah, that stun immunity better be true if this guy wins. And let's see, Majungasaurus. So yeah, another Abelisaurus. That would be really interesting because Carnos are the only Abelisaurids ARK has right now. So if they were able to add Majungasaurus, that would be pretty interesting. Let's see here. Most of the creatures look different. Majungasaurus seems to have evolved into a new niche. Many traits from modern day chameleons. Okay, so it's like a chameleon. It camouflages. There's something always watching them. Might be the culprit. High intelligence and very curious. Okay. Scientist best friend. Sneak up and study even the most dangerous, and can even help find certain desired traits in wild creatures. That's pretty cool. Because right now I believe you only have that on Genesis 2. So that'd be cool to have it on something that's not Genesis 2. That'd be interesting. Investigates trust with structures and stuff like that. The cannibalistic tendencies, that's actually true. There's a documentary. If y'all haven't seen Planet Dinosaur, it's narrated by the late John Cleese. They actually did a segment of that documentary that focused solely on Majungasaurus and how it was cannibalistic. Based on fossil evidence. So that would be pretty dang interesting. Survivors gather leftover scale. Okay, so it's shedded skin. Survivors. Unlike the Majungasaurus, survivors will only be able to camouflage when still. Okay. Interesting. It's not a fighter. Does the same damage as a Carno. Size of a Megalosaurus. New caving creature, since we haven't got anything capable of caving in a long time. Okay, so that's interesting. That's an interesting proposition. Yeah. Sounds kind of cool. But now for the title of the video. Y'all have been waiting a long time for me to cover this. The Gorgonops. Or the whatever you want to call it. Right here it's called the Gorgonops. A lot of people call them Gorgonopsids. A lot of people call them Gorgonopsians. A lot of people just call them plain old Gorgons. I honestly believe that Wildcard one of these days is going to cave. Just like the Carcharodontosaurus, they're going to cave and be like, if we add the Gorgon, will you guys shut up about the Gorgon? You know, we'll be like, y'all are getting so annoying with the Gorgon that we're just going to add it because we are sick of you adding it to these votes. Because it has been in every single vote. Just like Carcharodontosaurus, I believe its fate's the same. I believe Wildcard's going to add this just to get people to shut up about it. And yeah, I mean, it looks cool, it seems cool, but at the same time, I honestly think that if Wildcard caves and adds Gorgon to the game, then I honestly believe it better be pretty darn good. And if it's not pretty darn good, then yeah, and its taming method better be not what a Gorgonops taming method is. They need to go back to plain old passive tame, like sneak up behind it and stick something up its butt, or you load it up with trank arrows or trank darts. One of those two. It better not be some sort of minigame like Gorgonops, because Gorgonops does not always eat the carcasses you want to bring it. If you have seen my recent video, taming a Gorgonops, I went through so many trikes, and it would not eat them. It would eat one. And eventually, I went to the wiki, and it suggested Uteranus. I was like, fine, I'll feed it a baby Uteranus. And that finally got it to eat so I could do second half of the taming process. And oh my gosh, that drove me insane. The second half of the taming process, not drive me insane. The first half, getting it to eat the corpses, absolutely insane. I wanted to rip the hair out of my head. But yeah, the Gorgon, I think Wildcard is gonna cave because of all the pressure to add this thing. Either that or they're going to, I doubt they would make this move. They could say stop adding Gorgon to the crunch, but that would just piss so many people off. So I think one of these days they're just gonna add it, just to get people to shut up. And I honestly think that Gorgon, I mean, it looks so much like the Finalists here, just with some extra hair to it, just not as scaly. And I mean, it is absolutely a cool creature, but at the same time, this thing, every time I see a vote and it makes it into the top 10, I'm just like, the next vote they have, it's going to be the same thing. It's going to make it into the top 10, and it's going to lose, and whoever suggests Gorgon is going to keep suggesting it until Wildcard stops doing community votes, or until they release another map, and Gorgon is a pre-decided choice for that map. I mean, this is just absolutely insane. I'm getting so sick of that Wildcard. Just, I know you're saying you're only going to add one creature, but just find some way to add Gorgon. Okay, the next community crunch, say you're adding 2 creatures and one of them has already been decided by you, and that one's the Gorgon. Just to get people to stop doing this, because it's just like the Gorgonops all over again, and it's gonna keep, this is gonna keep happening. So just to not even because I want the Gorgon, I'm just like, add the Gorgon, so every time I go to read these votes, I do not have to see the word Gorgon. Just add it. Just add it. Get the people who are proposing the Gorgon, stop proposing it, because they are going to do it until the day they die. Just like they did with the Gorgonops. And this has been going on for so long, and I absolutely know that Wildcard is going to cave and add Gorgon. absolutely know it. And this video, oh my gosh, has been running on for so long. 35 minutes, good lord. So yeah, go ahead and make sure you vote. I will leave a link for this in the description of the video. Remember, whatever, and this is how it was when I clicked on it. Gorgon. I don't know where I'm going to put Gorgon. Heck, I might just put Gorgon at number 1 just to get it in. Just to stop that. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Go ahead and vote. I will leave a link to this vote in the video description. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I just need 15 more subscribers before I hit 200. And once I hit 200 subscribers, I will do a live stream. Another live stream. And yeah. With that being said, yeah, I'll see you guys next time.